Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. Now, I am back with another Are You In? And this is a very interesting one. This one is going to be Zeal Ardor's Stranger Fruit. Now, for those of you who don't know this band, they are an avant-garde metal slash melodic death metal, black metal, post-black metal soul band from Basel, Switzerland slash New York City. So the members include Manuel Gagnon on lead vocals, lead guitar, rhythm guitar, synthesizers, and programming, Dennis Wagner on backing vocals, Mark Obrist on backing vocals, Tiziano Volante on rhythm guitar and lead guitar, Mia Raffaella Diu on bass, and Marco van Almen on drums. They had one previous album called Devil Is Fine in 2016. Now, you're wondering, how did I learn of this band? Well, I listened to The Needle Drop on YouTube. A friend of mine recommended him, and I've been listening to him this year and went through all of his stuff from this year and have been listening to some of his recommendations. If you haven't checked him out and you like watching me, I highly recommend you checking him out. He does 5 reviews every week, and they're on the shorter side, but there's a lot of really good information. There's some stuff that I review that he doesn't, so of course, still keep watching my stuff if you like both. But yeah, if you are looking for some even more album reviews, check him out. Well, I listened to this on a whim after I listened to him talk about this album, and he was talking about that this particular album in this particular band uses both heavy metal slash black metal ideas as well as gospel slave songs and meshes them together. And I thought that it was an interesting idea. So what did I think of it? I honestly agree. First off, if you don't like black metal, if you don't like slave songs, gospel, and you don't like the idea of that together, this is not going to be for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in another video. But if you find that idea interesting, then you're going to be in for an interesting treat. The music itself, it's something else. I've never really heard something like this before. The matching of it sounds so interesting, yet somehow seems to work so well. When you get to the intro track and you hear the simple plucked guitar and some nice little hums, and then eventually goes into that metal feel and then back to the original feel as the narrator is talking about the horrors that are going to be happening on this album, you kind of get the idea of what this album is going to be. A lot of these songs have this interesting idea at the beginning of a gospelish sound with some call and response ideas, with some simplistic instrumentation, and a lot of heavy vocals and a lot of just very powerful vocals. At the same time, eventually it'll transition into potentially this metal sound. More screaming, more double bass pedals, more very staccato and fast-paced guitar work. And the way that they set each other up is very interesting. It makes for a lot of really cool arrangements that it's hard for me to talk about standouts or anything like that in particular, because a lot of them follow the same idea. So for me to be like, this is a little bit worse than this one, it's kind of hard for me to do that. I will say some of my favorite ones are ones that use this power and building very well. Something like Servants, where you have this more gospel tinge and sparse idea at the beginning in this B-flat minor section, and then you get these more yelling and more powerful and more building choruses where it's servants join us, and just like the rhythmic nature of that in E minor, and it's a little bit more dissonant. It makes for a very cool song in general. Don't You Dare also has this, again, this more gospel and more guitar driven work at the beginning, and even has some nature sounds as well. And then eventually it gets into the metal part again, using screams, using double bass pedals. Again, it's just a very, very powerful and very haunting sound, especially when you get these calm responses and buildings of Don't Look Away Boy. A lot of this album fits that idea, and it makes for some very eerie, very haunting, very powerful music. I guess I could use an idea of what Don't You Dare is supposed to be. Seeing something so ghastly and so horrifying, something so Lovecraftian or devilish that you want to look away, but you can't. And I feel like that's a great way of summing this album. It's a brutal album. It's probably the most brutal I've heard in a very long time. It's not a happy album. There is no happy songs on here. None of this is a very happy album. The lyrics themselves are a little bit all over the place in terms of I don't understand every reference or every idea that's going on, and a lot of it is repetition, like slave songs, where it's call and response, where you're using a lot of easier ideas and people are just responding to it. So a lot of these lyrics aren't like fully fleshed out in terms of, you know, multiple verses and a chorus. It's more of repeating ideas. But from what I understand and what I'm interpreting is a lot of evil, a lot of hate, a lot of anger, a lot of killing, especially of slaves, if we're talking about in the past, or if you want to bring this into the present and talking about, you know, police brutality and issues like that affecting the African American community. It seems like it's talking about the horrors of what this actually could be. It's not at all a happy album. Even like when you get to the ending song, Built on Ashes, and it's talking about we're all going to die eventually someday, or you will die. A lot of these songs are about killing. A lot of these songs are about the atrocities of man, and from what I'm understanding, because of a lot of, there are some certain parts where there's Latin chanting and German chanting, more of a atrocities of white men and Europeans. Even on song like Coagula, which is literally just chanting Salve Coagula, and it's salvation or coagulation, and it's talking about the idea of using alchemy to make things, I guess, and it's basically trying to show that there is another way of salvation, not through Jesus. It's a lot of really deep and really interesting ideas, and built so well, so terrifyingly, so in your face, you know, with each idea. And there are some more slower songs and not as much of the metal parts. Song like Gravedigger's Chant feels very bluesy and much like Take Me to Church in some aspects. A song like You Ain't Coming Back, another one of these that doesn't really use the metal aspects of it. And there are songs that are just straight up metal, which is Fire of Motion. That to me is, I think, one of the weaknesses on this album. If I was to grade the ideas, I think the problem that I have with the contrast is the metal aspects don't really change that much. It usually feels like it's like a double bass pedal where everyone's just like very, very fast kicks, and then very, very quick strumming guitar with not much difference. It feels like sometimes you're just waiting for it to come in and then the screams come in. So if it was for me, I would be interested to see what else they could do with the metal ideas. There are some differences. There are some songs where you use more of a triplet bass pedal and more of a more animated drum parts, but for the most part it feels like a lot of them stay the same in that aspect. I would say that the calm responses, the interesting verses, the interesting melodies, the interesting gospel parts make up for that. But again, I think also using that idea is making a more terrifying song too, a more harrowing song. There are also some interludes that kind of break up the pace of this. Songs like The Helmet, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful interlude song. It feels a little bit out of place, but it has these like very open and beautiful vocal chords and harmonies, as well as these sounds of nature. There's some piano cards and even some like banjo scales, and it's a very light and bright song, which feels completely different from everything else. The Fool's another one of these. It's a mostly electronic song, which has this like eerie, jaunty vibe to it, which also kind of feels the same for Solve or Solve, is another whimsical interlude. And it's so interesting that these are the songs that are contrasting everything else. The ones that stand out the most to me, it's definitely The Helmet, and just this overall just a very interesting album. I can't say it enough. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not an album that you're going to put on repeat, but it's an album that I would say for those who are very interested in this type of idea to listen to once, because you're definitely missing out on one of the more interesting albums that will be coming out this year. And yeah, I'm glad that I took a listen to it, and it's an interesting take on what has happened in the past, but also what is happening right now in a more scary, like probably one of the more scary albums that I've heard through music. This is one that it was hard for me to talk about in terms of different songs because it was just the feel of it is so in your face scary or in your face terrifying. And even those aren't necessarily the right words. Like, I'm not scared for my life by listening to it, but it's an album that makes you feel uneasy, and there aren't many albums that make me feel uneasy. So check it out if you are interested in this. That's my time, and I hope you guys got an idea of what I'm talking about. And if you have listened to this CD, give it a like. Tell me what you think about it, or tell me about other albums you would like me to review. And just keep on watching, keep on sharing, keep on subscribing. But until then, this is the Music Fan signing off. Peace.